He's lying.
Oh, you fool. You didn't listen.
Don't trust him.
I'm a fool.
Come on, man. He's the trickster. He's the god of mischief. What are you doing? Okay, how many more times are we gonna see this? There's not gonna be a threat big enough to kill off Loki. What is up, MCU fans? Welcome back to my channel. Loki, the brand new series, is premiering on Disney Plus this week, and I'm going to talk about the first 2 episodes today. Spoiler free, of course. We're going to dive into why I believe this could be the next great Marvel show, and let's get into it. So during the events of the Avengers in this alternate-ish timeline, Loki escapes with the Tesseract and thus sets off the events of this specific television show, meets the TVA or the Time Variance Authority and Owen Wilson's character of Mobius, and sets off on an adventure that could very well change the landscape of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, I don't want to dive into too much in this specific review because my individual episode reviews, they'll be coming out with each episode, but as of now, I want to tell you why this show is just so different. Not even from what you expect, but different from literally everything we've gotten in the MCU thus far, and that mostly has to do with its style and its writing. It's very much Twilight Zone mixed with a bit of Thor Ragnarok when it comes to the humor. And, if you're not the biggest fan of Ragnarok, then you may not laugh all that much, but I am a massive fan of that movie. So the comedic beats, especially in the first episode with the quips and the way that Loki's kind of interacting, thinking he's better than anyone and everyone he encounters. That came off as really humorous, but it did take a bit to get used to the style of this show because it's just so different. We are not used to Loki not being the one in charge when he walks into a room because he has this confidence that he can get by, get past, defeat anything he comes across. And it's funny because when we pick back up with him, he has just taken on the Avengers back in 2012, and he just got kind of slammed around and beaten up by the Hulk. So when he says in the first episode, listen, I've had a rough day, he really has had a rough day, but he hasn't turned into the Loki that we know and knew from Avengers Infinity War, of course, when he died in that movie. Because this is a different version. This is a version that hasn't yet learned about the consequences of everything that he put the Avengers through in 2012. So it's kind of something we had to, or at least I had to adjust my brain to, but once I did, and once I got used to the style and kind of the quirkiness of this first episode, I was really on board with it. And yes, the criticism in the first episode specifically will be that it does give a lot of exposition, not just to the audience, but to the character of Loki himself, because there is a large period of time in this first episode where Loki's kind of being caught up on a few things, and because of that, we're getting some flashbacks. Now, we're also getting some great interaction between he and Owen Wilson's character. Mobius is amazing. I love this character. I thought he was absolutely fantastic, and he fits so well in this universe. But I have already seen a couple of complaints within some of these first reaction tweets, which I tweeted myself, that the first episode is just a big exposition dump, and it's not until the second episode when the show gets good. So, that being said, if you don't enjoy this first episode, give it some time, wait until the next week, because I promise you, episode 2, if it doesn't get you invested, you may not like the show in general, but episode 2 has a lot for Marvel fans, and this may end up being the most Easter egg-filled show of any of the shows, even more than WandaVision. But I personally really liked the first episode because, we're getting some exposition, but Loki himself is able to kind of see some things that slightly changes his mentality. Now, we don't know where that's going to end up because obviously I've only seen the first 2 episodes, but he is sort of getting a new mentality about things, or at least trying to put that on the surface and relate a bit more than maybe even we expected to the character of Mobius. And Mobius is a character, Owen Wilson, who, for some reason, is a fan of Loki. He's part of the TVA. He's able to see all of the things that Loki has been through in the correct timeline, but also one that believes in Loki. And yes, Thor, Odin, his mother, everyone has always believed in Loki and told him that he's capable of great things, but he needs to go in, blah, blah, blah. But Owen Wilson's character here is able to show him his true potential and essentially teach him that what his mentality has always been only really spells trouble for others, doesn't necessarily help him out. And all of that from that first episode made me really enjoy what I was getting. And of course, Tom Hiddleston at the center, you can't go wrong because the guy's just incredible in the role, and he gets an opportunity to maybe even bring more emotion than we've ever seen. I think a big part of this, too, is the talent behind the camera. Kate Herron is our director here, and Kate actually directed Sex Education, and that is one of the best shows on Netflix, in my opinion, and really brings that style and implements it here, along with the writers, of course, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's work, but Michael Waldron, who knows everything about the banter between these characters and allows that to really flourish in the first 2 episodes, and the back and forth and, getting those little Marvel Easter eggs and nuggets along the way, and not quite a ton in the first episode, things we've seen before. And we get to see our Avengers, we get to see our characters, because of course we're getting those flashbacks, but nothing new necessarily. Now, Episode 2, we're not only entering the world of the TVA and maybe doing a little bit of time traveling here and there and getting to see a few different things that happen in history. That was super fun. But we are also introducing some things that may change the landscape of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Spelling out some things that have to do with the multiverse, of course, but seeing some elements that gets me really excited for the future. And one tease at the end of Episode 2 that I didn't think we were going to get until a little bit later, but they went ahead and gave it to us, that's got me thrilled and pumped out of my freaking mind. And another thing that gets me super excited is that Michael Waldron, who writes this series and also tackled Rick and Morty, is the writer behind Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So we're dealing with the multiverse here and all of these different variants and things in Loki that has me super excited. But then we're, kind of carrying that over, and no immediate connection, but maybe we're going to carry some of this over into Doctor Strange. So I guess WandaVision isn't the only series that is connecting to Doctor Strange, because we literally have the writer who is working on Loki, and that gets me super excited. So obviously I'm going to dive deeper into spoilers when I do my individual reviews, but just know that Loki is out there. It is strange. It's weird. The score is so different from other Marvel scores that we have gotten. It has this again, and even the introduction, it feels like the Twilight Zone. You even get it in black and white, and that is super cool. But what we're dealing with here, and the main focus, is time. Just remember that going in. And if you're really wanting to get something different out of this character in this world with Owen Wilson, wow, you're going to get it. Austin, do you have any complaints? Well, I do believe the pacing was just a bit off in the first 5 minutes of Episode 1. It could have been more so that I had to get used to the world, but man, it was strangely put together. I'll say that much. And, maybe getting all of that exposition wasn't the best way to start the show out, so I won't say it's the strongest Episode 1, but then we get into Episode 2 and kind of carrying over those themes. Episode 2, maybe even comparing it to all 3 premieres for all 3 shows, may be my favorite out of the 4. Man, this show rocked my world. Marvel has once again created a vastly different show. This series is trippy, and its comedic elements, like I said, have a Thor Ragnarok feel to them. Hiddleston thrives. Wilson owns this role, and it may end up being Marvel's best show yet. Jury's still out on that one. As for my score, I'm going a 90% just for the first 2 episodes. Can't judge the series as a whole just yet. And like I said in my community post, I want to showcase you guys who nailed that score. Had a few comments that predicted a 90%, so thank you guys for getting in that comment section and doing a great job at predicting my score. We're going to do that more often. Every time I tweet out my thoughts on something, I'm going to post on the community page, have you guys predict. And if you want to follow me on Twitter for my immediate reactions, and on Patreon, at the Burkeinator is my handle. All right, you guys, You're the best. Oh, man, I can't wait for you to see this show. Come back tomorrow morning because we're going full spoilers when the show drops. And, of course, already recorded my reaction to episode 1. Can't wait for you guys to see that. All right, I'll see you soon.